Imagine finding out that someone you knew was the focus of a popular true crime podcast.
Oh, wow.
Not as a victim, though,
Oh.
as the perpetrator.
Yeah, that would be, pretty shocking.
That's exactly what happened to Tiffany Reese, the host of the award-winning podcast, Something Was Wrong. And today,
Wow.
we're going to take a deep dive into her life story.
Okay.
And we'll explore how she went from a childhood filled with trauma and body image issues to creating this incredible platform that shares the stories and amplifies the voices of other survivors.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, and I'm really interested to hear more about it.
And to do that, we're going to be using Tiffany's own words taken from another podcast that she's a guest on.
Oh, cool. So we're getting it straight from the source.
Straight from the source.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning. Tiffany's childhood was, by her own account, pretty tough. She had a controlling mother who constantly criticized her appearance, which understandably led to body image issues and even disordered eating.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine being told that you need to go on a diet when you're only 4 years old. That kind of messaging at such a young age can have a really profound effect on someone's self-worth and body image.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And then tragically, her brother Bobby was murdered. It's clear that this event really had a huge impact on her and her life.
Yeah, I mean, losing a sibling is devastating in any circumstance, but Bobby's death was particularly violent and senseless. And you can really hear the empathy in Tiffany's voice when she talks about the witness to the murder. Her first thought is for the trauma that they must be carrying.
And then, as if all of that wasn't enough, her relationship with her mother, Liz, becomes even more strained after Bobby's death.
It almost sounds like Liz is trying to capitalize on the tragedy, like she's trying to find some personal gain from this horrible event. I just can't imagine how difficult that must have been for Tiffany to process.
To be dealing with the grief of losing your brother.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, having to deal with that really complicated and honestly unsettling dynamic with your own mother.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly difficult.
So from there, it's interesting how she ends up becoming a body-positive stylist, especially considering all of her own body image issues.
Yeah, that is fascinating. It seems like a kind of beautiful irony. She's promoting body positivity for other people while at the same time battling her own internal demons. What do you think that says about her journey?
To me, it seems like she found a way to use her own personal struggles as fuel to want to help other people.
Yeah, like she's taking her own pain and turning it outwards, channeling it into something positive.
And she really seems to hit her stride while working on videos at BuzzFeed and helping other women feel good about themselves.
It's interesting how those experiences run parallel with her own healing journey.
Right. It's like she's finding a way to heal by helping other people heal.
Exactly.
And speaking of turning pain into purpose, that brings us to the origin story of Something Was Wrong. It all starts at a party with a conversation with a friend.
A party? Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So she's at this party, and her friend Sarah starts telling her about this relationship that went very, very wrong.
Oh, so this is where the true crime element starts to come in.
Yeah. So Sarah's telling this story about how she was caught in a web of deceit and manipulation that involved catfishing and fake identities, and even this weird comment about cellulite that really set off alarm bells for Tiffany.
The cellulite thing, that is strange.
Right.
I wonder what it was about that specific detail, the comment about cellulite that stood out to Tiffany.
I think because Tiffany has struggled with body image issues for so long, it probably struck her as a really calculated attempt to try and undermine Sarah's confidence, like a way to manipulate her emotionally.
Yeah, that makes sense. Manipulating someone through their insecurities.
Exactly.
Wow.
And thankfully, Tiffany trusted her intuition and told Sarah this would make an amazing podcast.
And what did Sarah say?
She agreed.
Wow. So they really just jumped right into it.
Yeah. So a few months later, they get together at Tiffany's house with some snacks and a pretty basic recording setup. And the initial recording session ends up lasting hours and hours.
Oh, wow. I bet that was emotionally intense for both of them. I mean, Sarah's reliving this really painful experience, and Tiffany, as her friend, is hearing all these details for the first time.
But even though it was an intense experience, I imagine that there was also a sense of catharsis in sharing that story, a feeling of release.
Definitely.
And what starts out as a pretty formal conversation eventually just turns into something much more raw and real.
Oh, wow. I love that. So it wasn't just like a rehearsed retelling of the story. It was really like they were processing it together in real time.
And by the end of it, they're pretty much yelling and tossing snacks across the room.
They were tossing snacks.
Yeah, they're fully immersed in this emotional roller coaster of Sarah's story.
That's amazing. It really sounds like that shared experience of processing this trauma together really forged a deep bond between them.
And that rawness, that authenticity is what makes that first season of Something Was Wrong so captivating. It's not just like a retelling of events. It's a deep dive into the emotional impact of abuse, the confusion, the betrayal, the lasting effects that it can have on a person.
Yeah, and I think what really resonates with listeners is that Tiffany isn't just some detached narrator. She's somebody who understands these experiences on such a deep level.
And of course, she's bringing her own personal experiences and understanding of trauma to the table.
Right, exactly.
So what started as a way to support Sarah and her family quickly grows into something so much bigger.
So what do you think sparked that shift for Tiffany?
I think she really recognized the potential that the podcast had to reach a wider audience and to become this platform for other survivors to share their stories and find support.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It speaks to her desire to make something meaningful out of her own pain.
But as we've already discussed, success rarely comes easily. And Tiffany faces a ton of challenges in those early years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's working multiple jobs. She's taking care of her family. She loses her father-in-law. She's navigating a global pandemic. She even experiences housing insecurity at one point. It's just so much to handle.
It really is.
Yeah.
And yet through all of that, she keeps going. There's this incredible drive within her to keep sharing these stories and building a community.
It's incredible. She refuses to let those challenges stop her.
And thankfully, all of that determination ends up paying off. There are a couple of key moments that really launched the podcast into success.
Like winning an Iris Award for Podcast of the Year.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
And then there's the crossover episode with Crime Junkie, which brought in a ton of new listeners and finally reaching the #1 spot on the podcast charts.
Wow, what a journey. To see her hard work pay off like that and get recognized in such a huge way.
And it's clear that these successes aren't just about personal achievement for Tiffany. It's about the impact that she's having on other people.
Exactly. Speaking of impact, throughout all of this, we see Tiffany's own healing journey unfolding, and it's an ongoing process, this constant evolution.
She's addressing her health issues, making progress with her disordered eating, and finding strength by sharing her story and connecting with other people who've had similar experiences.
It's really inspiring to see someone so actively engaged in their own healing process.
And for Tiffany, a huge part of that healing process was making the incredibly difficult decision to cut off contact with her parents.
Wow, that must have been such a hard choice to make.
It was a huge act of self-preservation for her, a way of choosing her own well-being and the well-being of her family.
And how did she feel after making that decision?
She describes this overwhelming feeling of freedom from that choice.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that sometimes, even when its family boundaries are necessary, we all have the right to protect our own mental and emotional health.
Exactly.
So what happens next?
Well, next we'll hear about Tiffany's process of creating the podcast, and we'll discuss how she overcame some of the challenges that she faced along the way.
That sounds really interesting. I can't wait to hear more.
And we'll be right back after a quick break.
Yeah, it really is a powerful reminder that sometimes we need to prioritize our own well-being, even if it means making some really tough decisions about our relationships. Yeah, and it seems like even though there's definitely grief there for Tiffany from that loss, there's also this really strong sense of empowerment.
Totally. And that sense of freedom really carries through to other areas of her life, too, like her approach to healing and recovery. Throughout her journey, we see her constantly looking for ways to grow and change and find healthier ways to cope with all of the trauma she's experienced.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that she's really actively engaged in her own healing process. She finds a lot of comfort in practicing gratitude, focusing on the positive, even when things are tough. She also mentions using meditation and other techniques to help manage her anxiety, and she's still working on her relationship with food.
It's just really inspiring to see that commitment to self-care. It's a great example for anyone out there who might be struggling. It shows that recovery is possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And it might not always be a straight line,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a journey worth taking.
Definitely. Speaking of journeys, that brings us back to the creation of Something Was Wrong.
It's so fascinating how this idea starts from something so ordinary.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Okay, so Tiffany's at this party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking to her friend Sarah. And Sarah just starts telling her this story about a relationship that went very wrong.
So this is where the true crime part comes in.
Exactly.
Mm.
So Sarah's explaining how she got caught up in all this deceit and manipulation. There's catfishing fake identities, and even this weird comment about cellulite that really just set off alarm bells for Tiffany.
Cellulite. That's a strange detail to focus on.
I know, right?
I wonder why that stood out to her so much.
Well, I think it's because Tiffany herself has dealt with so many body image issues
Right.
that it just immediately struck her as a very deliberate way to manipulate Sarah and try to undermine her confidence.
Oh, yeah. Using her insecurities against her.
Exactly.
Wow, that's messed up.
But thankfully, Tiffany trusts her gut and tells Sarah this would make an amazing podcast.
I love that. And what did Sarah say?
Sarah was on board.
No way. So they really just went for it.
A few months later, they're at Tiffany's house with some snacks and this very basic recording setup, and they just start talking. That first recording session ends up going for hours.
Wow. That must have been really emotionally draining for both of them. I mean, Sarah's reliving this incredibly painful experience, and Tiffany, as her friend, is hearing it all for the first time.
I know. But I bet there was also some relief in sharing that story.
Yeah, definitely.
It can be really cathartic to finally let those things out.
Absolutely.
And what starts as this very formal conversation slowly becomes something much more real and raw.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't just them retelling the story. They were really processing it together in real time.
Yeah. And by the end, they're basically yelling and throwing snacks at each other.
Wait, they were throwing snacks.
Totally. They're completely lost in the emotion of it all.
That's amazing. It sounds like they formed a really strong bond by going through that together.
Yeah, it definitely brought them closer together. And that rawness, that authenticity, is what makes that first season so powerful. It's so much more than just a retelling of events.
Yeah, it's like a deep dive into the real emotional impact of abuse.
Exactly. And I think that's what resonates with listeners so much. They can hear that Tiffany gets it. She's not just reading a script. She's been there.
Right, and she's bringing all of her own experience and understanding to the conversation.
But what started as this way to support Sarah and her family quickly becomes something much bigger.
Yeah, so how do you think that happened?
Well, once she saw how powerful Sarah's story was, I think she recognized that this podcast could be a way to give a voice to other survivors and create a space for them to connect and find support.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really speaks to her desire to make something positive out of her own pain.
But building a successful podcast is a ton of work, and Tiffany faced a lot of challenges during those first few years.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, she's working multiple jobs, juggling her family responsibilities, dealing with the loss of her father-in-law, navigating a global pandemic, and even struggling with housing insecurity.
It's honestly amazing that she was able to keep going through all of that.
Right. It shows her incredible resilience and dedication.
And eventually that hard work pays off.
Yeah.
There are a few key moments that really launched the podcast into success.
Like winning that Iris Award.
Yeah.
What an accomplishment.
Then there's the crossover episode with Crime Junkie, which brought in a huge new audience.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Crime Junkie is huge.
And then finally reaching that #1 spot on the podcast charts.
Wow. To see her hard work get recognized on such a big scale, it must have been so rewarding.
And it's important to remember that these successes aren't just about personal achievement for Tiffany. It's about the impact that she's having on the lives of others.
Right. Speaking of impact, throughout this whole journey, we see Tiffany's own healing unfolding. She's constantly working on herself, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
She's making so much progress with her health, both physically and mentally. And she's finding strength in sharing her story and connecting with other people who have been through similar experiences.
It really shows that healing is a journey. It's not a destination.
Exactly. And sometimes it means making some really difficult decisions.
Like cutting ties with her parents.
Yeah, that was such a huge step for her.
Yeah.
But it ultimately brought her a sense of peace and freedom.
It's really inspiring to see someone taking control of their life like that and setting those boundaries.
And now that we've talked about her personal journey, let's dive into the details of creating Something Was Wrong, starting with that very first recording session with Sarah.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear more about that, especially after hearing about all those snacks flying around.
Oh, yeah. So remember how they're at Tiffany's house with their very basic setup and they just start recording? Well, that initial recording session ends up lasting for hours and hours.
Wow. Can you imagine how emotionally intense that must have been? Sarah's reliving this traumatic experience and Tiffany's hearing all these details for the first time.
I know, it must have been really heavy, but I also imagine that it was a relief for Sarah to finally share her story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And for Tiffany to be there for her and listen it.
And what's so interesting is that what starts as this very structured interview eventually morphs into something much more organic and real.
Oh, wow. So they weren't just sticking to a script. They were really letting the conversation flow.
Exactly. And by the end, they're practically yelling and throwing snacks at each other.
Wait, they were throwing snacks?
Oh, yeah. They're totally immersed in the story at that point.
That's amazing. It sounds like they really connected on a deeper level by going through that together.
And that's what makes that first season so captivating. It's that rawness that you don't get from a lot of other podcasts.
Right. It's not polished or overproduced.
It's just two friends having a real conversation.
And I think that's what people connect with. They can hear that Tiffany's not just a host. She's someone who understands what it's like to go through something like this.
Exactly. And of course, she's bringing all of her own experience to the table, which just adds another layer of authenticity.
But as we've already talked about, the podcast really grew beyond just Sarah's story. What do you think caused that shift for Tiffany?
I think she saw the potential to help more people, to create a platform where survivors could share their stories and feel less alone.
Yeah, that's so powerful. It really speaks to her empathy and her desire to make a difference.
But that kind of success doesn't happen overnight. Tiffany faced a lot of challenges in those early days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like we've already mentioned, she was juggling multiple jobs, dealing with family issues, facing financial struggles, and even experiencing a period of housing insecurity.
It's amazing that she was able to keep going through all of that.
Right. She's clearly a very determined person.
And that determination eventually pays off. There are a few key moments that really launched the podcast into success.
Like winning that Iris Award,
That's a big one.
and then the crossover episode with Crime Junkie,
That brought in so many new listeners.
and then eventually hitting that #1 spot on the charts.
What a journey.
It's just so inspiring to see someone overcome so many obstacles and achieve that level of success.
And it's clear that this success isn't just about the numbers for Tiffany. It's about the impact that she's having on other people.
Exactly. Speaking of impact, it's really interesting to see Tiffany's own healing journey unfold throughout all of this. She's constantly working on herself and growing.
Yeah, she's really committed to her own personal growth and well-being.
Which brings us to another really important part of her story, her decision to cut off contact with her parents.
Yeah, it was a huge step for her, but it ultimately allowed her to find more peace and freedom in her life.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes we have to set those boundaries even with our family members.
Especially when those relationships are causing us pain.
Exactly. It's so important to protect our own mental and emotional health.
And Tiffany's story really shows us that it's possible to create a happy and fulfilling life, even after going through so much trauma.
So true. So what happens next?
Well, next, we'll talk about some of the major themes that emerged from Tiffany's story. And we'll discuss the impact that something was wrong has had on the world.
That sounds great. I can't wait.
You know, it's easy to get lost in the twists and turns of Tiffany's story. But when you take a step back and really look at the big picture,
Yeah.
what stands out the most is that incredible drive she has to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. Throughout her journey, you just see this constant theme of resilience. She faces obstacle after obstacle, hardship after hardship, but she never lets those things define her.
It's amazing. It makes you wonder where she gets that strength from, that ability to just keep going even when things are so hard.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from that deep sense of purpose she has. She's found something that really lights her up and gives her life meaning.
And that purpose seems to be all about using her platform to speak up for those who don't have a voice,
Yeah.
to bring attention to the issue of abuse and create this community of support and healing for other survivors.
Yeah, she's taking her pain and turning it into something positive, something that can make a real difference.
And that's such a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. Another theme that I noticed in Tiffany's story is the power of sharing our stories.
Oh, absolutely. She talks a lot about how isolating and silencing abuse can be. It makes you feel like you're completely alone.
Yeah.
And that's why platforms like Something Was Wrong are so important. They create this safe space for survivors to connect and share their experiences and realize that they're not alone.
It's like finally breaking free from that isolation.
Exactly.
And Tiffany's willingness to be so vulnerable and share her own experiences has helped so many other people find the courage to do the same.
It's amazing how one person's vulnerability can have this ripple effect and empower so many other people.
And it's not just about finding support from others, it's also a form of healing in itself.
Yeah.
Tiffany talks about how writing and speaking about her experiences has helped her to process her trauma and ultimately find peace.
It's like she's reclaiming those experiences and taking back her power.
And what's even more inspiring is that she doesn't just talk about these things, she lives them. She's always pushing herself to grow and become a better version of herself.
She's a great example of what it means to be on a lifelong journey of self-improvement.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Tiffany Reese and the impact of Something Was Wrong, I want to leave you with this thought.
Yeah.
What's one story that you've been holding on to? A story that maybe has been weighing you down? Could sharing that story, even with just one person, help you to heal or to connect with others or even find a new sense of purpose in your life?
Tiffany's story is a powerful reminder that we all have a story to tell, and that by sharing our stories, we can connect with others, find healing, and create real change in the world.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible life and work of Tiffany Reese.